Hey, Larken Rose here. I always say I'm going to make it short, and I almost never do. Let's see if I actually can this time. Let me start by saying something that is completely irrelevant to the point of this video. The following is completely irrelevant to the actual point of this video. I think allowing biological men or boys to compete in women's sports and be in their locker rooms is a colossally stupid idea. It's destructive, it's unfair, it's a whole bunch of shitty things. Now, I think the way to deal with that is freedom. Freedom of association, freedom of disassociation. If some organization wants to say, well, we're a women's organization for this, but if someone says they think they're a woman, we'll let them do it. Okay, they can do that on their property with their organization, and other people have the right to either associate with them and go along with that, or say, yeah, we're going somewhere else. Now, the moment there's public funding involved, freedom of disassociation and freedom of association is out the window because everybody got robbed. Now everybody's going to argue with each other. Even that's beside the point. So, having said that, there are currently a bunch of people going, yay, because Trump at some event somewhere apparently directly confronted I think his political parasites in Maine. It was like, you're still allowing men in women's sports in some, I don't even know the details, don't care, they don't make any difference to the point I'm about to make. And he said, basically, if you want to keep getting federal funding, you better stop doing that. And I see lots of people going, yay, that's so brave, that's so courageous. I've seen nobody else. I mean, I'm sure people are noticing it who know how to think. But of the people going rah, rah, rah for that, I've seen none of them notice something really, really, really important. First of all, that's not a federal issue under the Constitution, if you believe in the Constitution. I don't. It's way too authoritarian. But if you pretend to believe in the Constitution, the federal government doesn't decide that sort of thing. That's not their jurisdiction at all in any way, shape, or form. Now, you might wonder if instead of just being emotional and going, yay, we don't like that, therefore whatever is against that we're going to cheer for, if you pause and say, wait a minute, this is not a federal issue. Why is the government giving money to anything or withholding any money from anything to control these things? And by the way, there's a Supreme Court case, United States versus Butler, from a bajillion years ago, it was like 1936 or something, where the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can't, if there's something that's not supposed to be under federal jurisdiction, you don't get to control it by way of taxing it or by way of handing out money. If the feds don't have jurisdiction over X, but they take a bunch of money and go, well, we're going to pay you to do the thing we want you to do, that's them getting control over it. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can't do that. Now, I'm sure there's been excuses and modifications and all sorts of crap since then, but that's a pretty basic principle. That thing isn't any of your business. If you use a bunch of stolen money to make that any of your business, that's just you going around the rules and advocating for unlimited, arbitrary federal power. So anybody going rah, rah, rah about, yay, he's withholding the funds until you are cheering for the federal government to control something that was never supposed to be under federal control under the Constitution. You don't give a shit about the Constitution if you do that. Now, this has been the standard forever, and zero Democrats and zero Republicans bother complaining about this. But this is another shining example about how if you don't think in principles, you're going to see something you care about, you're going to have your little blinders on, and you're going to go, well, that politician did something against what I don't like, or in favor of what I do like, therefore it's great. Instead of backing up and in principle saying, why the hell does the government have any influence to decide any of this? Why are they handing out money to anybody? And if you're handing out money to a bunch of people and then you say, well, we're not going to hand out money to you unless you do these things, unless you jump through these hoops, then you can get federal funding. This is not happening because Trump gives a crap about that issue. This is happening for the reason everything else he's doing, because Trump wants centralized authoritarian power. And if you're cheering for this, you are cheering for centralized authoritarian power. You are cheering for the federal government controlling things which were not supposed to be under federal jurisdiction, under the Constitution. Now, I don't think any government at any level should control it or even exist. So that's beside the point. But if all it takes is for you to be upset about something, for you to cheer for an authoritarian solution which empowers government to stick more tentacles in more things, which is what this is doing, you're cheering for complete authoritarianism while thinking you're cheering for justice. Justice is not government using its force and its wealth and its power and its money to back up things you like and not to back things you don't like. Freedom and justice are government having no say in any of that. And if there's some organization doing something you think is bogus, like don't send your kids there and don't associate with them and don't fund them. That's how freedom is supposed to work. That's how freedom of disassociation is supposed to be used to disempower this. And of course, it's just as bad that the federal government was ever giving any money to anybody to do. Yeah, as long as you do these things and you do these DEI things, we'll give you a bunch of money. That's just as bullshit. It's still government trying to control things. But coming along and saying, we're not going to give you the money unless you do a different thing that we want. It's still control freakism. It's still authoritarianism. It's still centralized control. And if you cheer for it just because it happens to match your values and your priorities, you're still cheering against freedom. You're still cheering for centralized authoritarian control. And it's so weird to watch a bunch of pro-freedom people still falling for that and still going rah, rah, rah at examples of the federal government trying to control things. It shouldn't control anything, including, well, these people are really bad and doing something really horrible. Okay, that should be stopped. Not by way of government robbing us and wasting most of it and being corrupt and doing a crappy job, but by free individuals finding ways to voluntarily get together to stop actual aggressors. But it's so easy for people in government to point to some horrible thing, usually some horrible thing they created, and then wave around the fact that now we're using our centralized authoritarian power to serve your values. Isn't that awesome? No, it's not. And if you understand principles, you'll recognize, no, it's not. I have lots of opinions about how people should behave. Never in a million years will you catch me cheering for any politician trying to use government leverage to control any of that. Because I actually believe in freedom. I believe other people should be free to make choices I think are dumb. Should be free to associate with each other in ways that I think are destructive and stupid, as long as they're not actually committing force or fraud against somebody else, in which case they should be forcibly stopped, and not even by government. But if it's that easy to trick you into going, well, this matters so much that I'm going to cheer for authoritarian power, then they're going to keep making a problem and then proposing an authoritarian solution, and you're going to keep cheering for it, and the end result is going to be what we have right now, which is a government with its tentacles in absolutely everything. And that's going to keep going until most people can get to the point where they say, I really like that, but I don't want government mandating it. And I don't really like that, but I don't want government forbidding it. Because that's what freedom actually looks like. 0 Democrats believe in it. 0 Republicans believe in it. 0 voters believe in it. But humanity has to eventually figure it out and stop falling for the games that just empower ruling classes while you think they're doing something you like. They've been doing this for centuries. When are you going to catch on? Don't cheer for a political savior when he gives you a political solution to a problem, because it's just another problem.